Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is User Security Governance Overview in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. My name is Timo, and I will be your moderator and co-presenter today. And I'm pleased to have Dave, Saurabh, and Bart with me. Guys, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Timo, for starting. My name is Bartosz Szpiech. I'm Vice President of Product in Nextplus, and super proud to be here because that's the moment where our kit is going to the market, we can say. Executive Automaz, our former product dedicated for security, is right now available as a preview in 10.43 update of finance and supply chain management. So everybody can benefit from knowledge and expertise coming from the market. We've collaborated with SMC, SMB, enterprise level customers, including the biggest brands on the globe, which are operating on Dynamics. And I think we can be pretty happy and cheerful to see how it will evolve. New way how we're going to build the roles and role-based access in finance and supply chain management. Thank you for hosting us here.
Thank you, Timo. I am Saurabh Gupta, and I'm one of the engineers working on this integration and working closely with Bartosz and his team to integrate the X Plus product into Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform. It has been an amazing journey in the last few months, and we are really hopeful to get some positive feedback and amazing questions as part of this session, and to make sure that we are able to convey the vision behind this product integration and how it is going to solve some of the customer and business scenarios. So looking forward to talk to all of you. Thank you so much. Timo, over to you.
Thanks, Saurabh. Yeah, and I'm Timo. I'm leading the FastTrack for Dynamics 365 team. And my team is working with real-life implementations out there. So we are obviously also quite excited about the new features coming and the positive impact it has on implementations, but also then on the operations within our customers' businesses. And I'm really thankful and glad for working with the team here since a couple of months on these new feature sets. Good. So let me walk you through the agenda. First of all, I want to call out a couple of customer challenges that we identified so far out there. And think about it as the issue statement if you want. Then we will dive into the features themselves, giving you some broader overview. And in addition, share the timeline, which is typical of high interest. And you want to know when you can try out these new features. Then we will demo the various features coming. And finally, we will share really useful resources and should have enough time for Q&A as well. Before going into the issue statement, I want to highlight something that is closely related to the features coming, and which is hopefully no surprise. Microsoft runs on trust. As Microsoft, we have a clear commitment to provide secure products and services to our customers. And it's almost a year ago when Satya Nadella published his Prioritizing Security Above All Else memo, which was launching what we call the Secure Future Initiative, which meant we as Microsoft doubled down on an approach grounded in three core principles, which are called secure by design, secure by default, and secure operations. So you see, security is really at the core of what we do. Now, if you look at finance and operations apps, there were some clear challenges identified that our customers were facing. In addition, with the success of our products and services, we have seen that the size of customers and the complexity coming in large organizations with their transformational programs were even stressing some of these challenges more. There was always complexity in managing security roles and licensing. And for implementation projects, however, you want the latest at the point in time of a UAT testing, appropriate user roles and security setup defined. And I mean, you absolutely don't want to have, for instance, a go live with a lot of admin accounts because you're not able to manage and define your roles on time. Also, if you don't take such an extreme case, but think about any inappropriate access to data can ultimately lead to fraud or reporting challenges or even security breaches. And that comes with a lot of reputational risk, not only for you as a customer, but quite frankly, also for us as Microsoft. Now, another point was that our customers had to add ISV solutions on top of our standard product capabilities to get the right support to manage their security setup with ease and meet internal or external audit requirements. And also, especially some of your financial processes and regulatory requirements do need rigorous control, visibility, and transparent audit trail. And on top of everything else, we are in the era of generative AI, where the importance towards security itself and safeguarding sensitive data even increases. So I talked a lot about the challenges, and with that, I'm going to hand over to Saurabh, who will give you insights about the new features and capabilities coming that will help you to address the issues. Saurabh, over to you.
Thank you, Timo, and thanks everyone for joining this session. I'm super happy to talk about user security governance today. As Timo called out some of the key challenges in the previous slide, the user security governance is going to provide a bundle of features once you will enable it in your FNO instance. And these features basically will try to solve each of these major challenges. For example, Timo called about that as the companies are growing, their complexity of managing the security roles is increasing. So in user security governance, we are trying to change the way a system administrator is going to define their security architecture by closely aligning it with their business processes. So we are going to provide some easy to utilize and easy to understand user interface by which it will be much more faster and understandable and relatable for a person to define their security architecture. We also talked about using license management and how the licensing cost for companies are a big challenge. So user security governance is going to provide some key licensing based reports and the data metric by which system administrators and companies, they can optimize their license utilization, licensing cost, and as well as continuous monitor it going forward. So these are some amazing benefits which are going to be part of the user security governance. Team also talked about companies having challenges with compliance and audit maintenance. So as part of USG, there are some reports which are going to show the data for role audit trails. For example, various users are obtaining different type of roles. They are having role changes over the period of time. So all that data will be tracked as part of the role audit trail. Or user aging report, which is another key report part of USG features. So you will see that how these audit trails, task recordings available through the privileged user management features, how these features can help a company set up better for their compliance audits or compliance certifications. So as part of this slide, you will see that how we are focusing towards some key areas, some key features are in focus, and our goal is basically to eliminate some of those challenges which we talked about earlier as key challenges for any company, like dependency on ISVs to obtain some additional tools which work on top of Dynamics 365, because now we are trying our best to provide these features as part of the Finance 365 platform itself. How we can simplify creating the security configuration and make it much more faster and easier, giving a modular approach by which any system administrator can quickly change things, can track things, or things in the sense like changing the roles, changing the entry points and all. Multi-level view of licensing is 360-degree view of licensing is another key goal of this. And also providing some value-add features as part of the user security governance, which is like privileged user management, which is equivalent to a firefighter management feature where people can provide some additional functionalities or additional roles to some individual firefighter accounts, make them activated for a session, given amount of session, and record their activities within the system and use it for auditing later. Or a temporary role management is another key value add feature which is coming, by which now system administrators can deal with situations of providing some additional roles for a given amount of time to a person in case of someone else is going for a long holidays or paternity or maternity leave. So in those situations, temporary role management per feature can be really helpful. So with that, I will let Timo talk a little bit about the business processes catalog.
Thank you, Saurabh. Yeah, as you probably know, we published a business process catalog that provides you with an overview about end-to-end scenarios and business processes that Dynamics 365 supports out of the box. And on this slide, I really want to highlight that the process catalog is also covering supporting process like an administrator to operate. You can see that the new functionalities coming are enhancements within several business processes in process areas such as implement solutions, manage licensing and entitlements, administer system features, manage system and access security, and manage system compliance. And they are pretty much spreading across the entire life cycle, right? It's not only the implementation of Dynamics 365, where you need to take the new functionalities and capabilities into account, but also then through operations where you want to monitor compliance and do other activities as revoking user access to systems, providing temporary access, all the parts that Saurabh already mentioned. So have a look at the business process catalog for more details to learn about the documented end-to-end process landscape. Over to you, Saurabh, for the feature improvements.
So now I will deep dive a little bit into some of the key features. I'm not saying that this is the entire list of the features, but I'm going to deep dive a little bit into key areas which are getting as an improvement here. The first thing and the most important thing is process-based security role. So earlier, basically the system administrators were used to basically use the pre-created security objects, whether it is role, entry points, privileges, and duties. But now the most important thing is how to create a role by converting their day-to-day business process within their company into a security role. How it can be achieved is basically there are 2 or 3 options in the USG feature, by which one of the option is you can record your end-to-end business process by using the task recorder utility, which is part of the FNO platform already. So it is not any new utility to learn about. You can simply use that utility, record your end-to-end steps, and then import that task recording file back into the USG module, and it will automatically extract the desired and the right set of entry points out of that task recording file on your behalf, and it will give you a template, pre-created template with the right set of entry points, right set of duties, and then you just have to review it once and save your role, and it will ensure that it is identifying the exactly right set of entry points which are desired to perform that particular duty. So it will make sure that this process-based security role is now allowing all the system administrators to move much faster and be able to create the roles which are totally aligned with their business processes in their company. So they do not have to completely rely on the pre-existing security roles and modify them. Another key part of the USG feature is to create the entire security hierarchy by using the import processes. So there are multiple ways you can import. One of the ways definitely to use the task recorder. Other is to use the XML file to create the entire business or security hierarchy for their company. And that is also a very convenient way of creating security hierarchy for their company in a much faster manner. And we can see it in the demo as well as in the FAQ documentation, how this import process works. Temporary role assignment is a key feature which I talked a little bit about earlier, that by using this feature, now system administrators can manage the situations where someone in the company has to go on some unexpected leave or some planned leave, and now the duties of that person can be handed over to someone else for a temporary duration of time. And after that, those additional permissions which are granted will be taken back or reverted automatically. So that temporary role assignment feature will be really helpful for system administrators in those situations. Privileged user management, aka firefighter role. This is one of the key features which we are introducing, and this feature will allow system administrators to schedule now some firefighter sessions in the system. For example, if someone has to perform budget audits over the weekend, then they will be able to use a very specific privileged account who has the permissions to perform those audits, and they can schedule it for the weekend. And during that time, when the session is active, that account can log in into the system, perform the duties whatever are authorized to do it, and the entire session will be recorded for auditing purposes. So that will give the privileged user management session uh, a much more like measured and automated way of maintaining, as well as within compliance boundaries. Segregation of duties and segregation of privileges, these are key features in terms of making sure that not there are no more overlapping duties and overlapping roles in the system. That will eventually help any company optimizing their licensing cost and making sure that everyone has the unique roles identified and designed in such a manner. Because as the companies become big and the security architecture become more and more complicated, doing these functionalities manually become more cumbersome. So these segregation of duty and privilege will really help any system admin to monitor things. And then some of the key reports are mentioned here, like the versioning report, which is now you can, as a system administrator, you can maintain multiple versions of your security system. So let's say every 6 months, if you want to maintain a snapshot of your security architecture, you can keep a separate version of it. And you can always revert to it, you can always restore it, or you can compare the new version with the previous versions. So that will be part of the versioning system. Duty subtraction will allow to create something not from the scratch, but utilize something which is existing, and then start removing things, or you removing the entry points or duties out of it to create a new duty or new role out of it. So this is to basically allow to move faster. And audit trail report, as I already talked about, that this will maintain the role changes for every user, active users in system. Uh, and some new reports, which are license report, and they are, as I mentioned, they were 360-degree report. So they provide the license consumption by role, by duty, by privilege, and by entry points. So these 4 different pivot points for license consumption will be really helpful for any system administrator to monitor the current cost as well as how they can predict in future. And lastly, the user aging report is basically uh, how and when, basically when the active accounts within FNO are logging in into FNO and logging out, and how much basically they are consuming the licenses which are allocated to them. So based on this report, it will basically provide some data points to the system administrators to monitor uh, if there is an option to reduce the license for a given user account. So these reports are going to be very helpful for you. So in this preview program planning timeline, as you can see, we are already in the public preview availability phase. Feel free to go and utilize the 10.043 build and you will be able to enable these features through the feature management. We have a private Viva Engage channel to discuss the feedback, Q&As, and any ideas about this feature. So we are really looking forward to all of you to try out these features and share your feedback about it. After March 14, we will be basically ending the public preview, and it will be the release for 10.043, and the GA is planned in the summer, somewhere around July 2025, and as part of the 10.044 build. Okay, over to you, Bartosz.
Thank you so much, Rob. Yes, it's crucial to have that market exposure and to get your feedback by this community to make sure that by July we're going to have a even better product. But so far we did plenty of tests. It was astonishing and great to see. One of the key aspects to remember from this tech talk and this whole USG module is kind of a new redesign approach. I'm going to walk you through that over a demo in a second, but take a look on this concept. This concept on the USG introduces the roles which are based on positions. So we can walk through like holistic approach through organization, extract your all positions that you have, individual, those which are very common. You define them in a hierarchy. That will be left-hand side of the right-hand side here on the graph, and it will be left-hand side on the UI, which we're going to see in a second. So you build up your organization hierarchy. You extract from the different business areas, different people, different positions which are working. Underneath positions, we will create duties equal processes. So the exercise would be, I go to the salespeople, I ask them for what they do, they name processes, each process can be converted to duty, and then in the background, system automatically creates a privilege based on the process with entry elements, entry points included. And as Rob was mentioning, we record every process with task recording. That task recording is converted to duty, and then it is loaded in a row. That simplification makes a significant impact on licensing, on the way how people are working with Dynamics, because the whole UI is simplified. And if you're going to think about multinational organizations, when you have one sales representative working with different regions and different countries, we have approach for that as well. So it is very easy to accommodate that approach along very complex organizations. And as mentioned, we've collaborated not only with enterprise brands, but we've tested out this approach in smaller companies. So we know that this will fit the need. And I think, Saurabh, you were the first person who learned from Microsoft this tool itself and the approach. If you were to tell, how do you feel about this?
Definitely. Thanks, Bartosz. Yeah, this is one of my favorite feature, where when I was logging in and I was acting as a persona of an end user, it was very simple. Like, I simply recorded my persona, which was a budget clerk, and I went to the FNO system. I recorded my day-to-day activities by using the task recorder utility, which I am very familiar with. And it gave me a file, AXTR extension file. And I just came to this user security governance module, and I imported my recording into the system, and it created an entire template for you, which is like, I as a persona, I felt like it's a magic, because it identified the right set of entry points which I needed to perform my duty, and it suggested the right level of authority for each entry point as well, the permissions for entry point. And at the end of the day, as a system administrator, I just had to just review it and save it in the system and publish the role and light, like it's done. So I'm very positive about this feature, and I'm pretty excited that, Bartosz, you are going to demo this feature in the demo section. So over to you, Bartosz.
Thank you. So in the system administration, you're going to see module right now. Everything is in preview. One of the key focuses or key elements that we're going to start today is security process roles maintain. That's the hierarchy that I was walking through very briefly. So simply saying, on the left-hand side, you build up your business areas, your work streams, however you want to approach that. This is going to be an aggregation level, the hierarchy of your organization. In different areas, you can place multiple positions, and one role will be applied to one position job here, sales representative. I can see that this specific sales representative right now has 2 task recordings applied, which means that this person will handle 2 business processes. These task recordings were pre-recorded previously before the session, and I was just doing extraction. Every selection like this, sales order creation, leads me to multiple entry points which are behind the scene. System is recognizing automatically whenever you are loading that data, the access level. So I'm able to say what access level or how it was designed or how we've been interacting with the system. So that will be combined into the duty. Then whenever I'm ready, I can click create a new role and build a role for sales representative VVAF. If I'm going to click OK, system will create a role and apply their duties along with privileges and entry points. The whole process is very simple, and we see a great performance by multiple system admins across the globe with capacity of building 10 roles per week, which was a superb result. Let's go to pricing specialist, which is going to be our playground for today. As mentioning, you have to create your own task recordings, then you can load it. By loading, you can just refer to processes that you've got to record it. I've got here a small database of processes created, so I will take and apply here one process, sales create again. Click OK. System extracts now entry points, and I know what is included. I'll redo the same thing for a few other processes to have a bit more data. Let's do warehouse location create and carry on with the third one. And the last, let's say, fixed asset creation. These 2 processes, let's say, are fitting the requirements of what our pricing specialist will do. What I can do now is to create a duty. So we're going to have first one, AR01 as create. Sales create. I'll name the second duty. Right now, system tells me, oops, there are some already existing duties in the system which are matching my processes. One of the elements with Saurabh was mentioning is that we have to make sure that we are aligning with the compliance, the multiple audits, and requirements from auditors. This functionality is checking what else is existing in the system which matches the expectations, and I see that there is an element existing which covers majority of these elements, and there are even elements or one duty which is covering 100% of my process. When you're gonna set SOD rule in your system, this line or any line which has SOD rule will be bolded, which means that there's a warning for you. Hey, you are building a duty for the process, or we are building a duty based on the process, and there is a duty in the system with a rule on the top of it, which means that you have to talk with auditor, internal auditor or external auditor. Hey, I'm just about to create new duty. I need that one, but it actually contains in another duty which has on the top of it segregation of duty rule. So you need to validate that if you are actually allowed to do that, or you can duplicate the rule for the new duty that you're creating. If you're going to do that, then auditor will have that in note, and it will be easier for you to maintain the compliance state. Let's leave right now the duty here, and I'll continue with creation, the duty for warehouse location. And I'll create the third one as well. The same thing. I got information that there are multiple duties with covering at least one of the entry points selected from my recording. And last one. And the same thing here. We have to be careful. Of course, we can set some thresholds to monitor with less preciseness. When I have my 3 duties, I can simply attach now and create a row. And with that row created, we can navigate quickly to security configuration. So you're going to see the row created, 3 duties applied, and of course, entry points and a bit more in just a second. So as you see, we have duties, we have privileges, and we have display items with nice element of identification of the controls included. So if there are controls, form controls, and hidden from you, they're going to be automatically identified. They're going to be added straight to the controls underneath the privilege you're going to create. So we are minimizing the amount of time you spend on delivery of any new role. If you're going to say within my process or within the UAT of the role that you've created, somebody will say, hey, but in sales process creation, I'm actually missing few items. So we've been able to extend the current form information functionality. So now when you'll be able to use it, underneath right-click form information, there will be additional layer of information. And this layer of information gives you idea what is here, what is the item type and inventory menu item name behind the element I've overviewed, or I double click or right click on it. That is much more precise and gives you more confidence that my user told me that I need this and this access, and I can quickly identify that and add it straight. If you're going to go with view permissions, you are able to use the whole span, the whole number of actions, menu items listed on the form itself. So I've got long range of functionalities available, and I can pick few which I'm missing and add them straight to the duty that I'm just creating within our session today. So that functionality will speed up the reiterations of the business whenever they're going to tell us that there is something missing in our duty that we've just created together. Okay, let's come back to module. Within the module itself, when the row is ready, you're going to say we've passed the UATs, the users are happy with what they see. You are able to save as XML that specific row and push it to prod or push it to UAT for further or pre-prod to further testing. So this can be then loaded straight in the security configuration and as one singular row with applied duties and privileges. So there is no need for moving whole security customization layer. You can pick selectively and transfer selectively roles which are already in sign-off. So then within the USG module where it's going to be released, you'll be able to work on dev or UAT machine, work with a higher instance with the business on sign-offs to make sure that they like what they do, and then you'll be able to promote that selectively by XML to the higher applications. And finally, if there will be a need, we will provide an AOT extraction element, which will help you also make it permanent, just to make sure that we are addressing all needs. If you're going to say, yes, we want to extend the row, but we know the entry point name, we want to work this a little bit more heavily here, you are able to add entry points also in that perspective, so you can extend current duty, which was identified by multiple other entry points from this perspective. And we have some case studies with a customer who wanted to create every entry point with read-only access. You would just need to create a little bit more duties and play around a bit with the names, adding everything which starts from A to B and then, or A to D, E to H or F, and then continue to build a very big row containing all entry points, building kind of similar to admin row without with only view permissions. Of course, there is an element of action items, but this will do a great job for majority of auditors. Within the application here, there are a few more functionalities which are available. I'll right now continue towards the next module, the next functionality, just to make sure that we're going to keep up with the time. So the second one I would like to show you today is licensing usage summary. That is the new version of the report, which gives you a very quick, transparent view of what kind of licenses you need for environment. Within that view, we are calculating based on the access rights, based on the entry points, what license level is needed for every person with a summary. So you're able to apply also prices for your licenses, and then overview, quick TCO from the licensing perspective. We are applying, of course, the basic plus attachment module or model of licensing, so you clearly are able to see how many different type licenses you need. That is something which I think will be a game changer from the old reports, which are pretty heavy. We also applied a possibility to work with heavily customized dynamics instances where you have unknown modules and it is pretty hard to apply licenses. We have the functionality to manually assign if we have that gap. So just to make sure that we are able to apply you solution for all cases. You are able to overview licenses from the role perspective, user perspective, duty or privilege perspective. If you're going to think, oh no, my role actually has one or two entry points, which are making it very expensive, you've got a security summary, which gives you the possibility to drill down to the entry point level and find out why my role is expensive. And then make a quick adjustments, make a quick calls, maybe to cut some fragments. And then when we talk about high attendance, high numbers of sales representatives or warehouse workers, they might not need the highest paid licenses. We are able to find out why they are expensive and propose some changes. Okay, carry on to the other element. Security analysis, that's another sub-analytics module, which gives you the capability to find out who else has the same access rights. Answering the question, who can do bank transfers, answering the question, who potentially can do another or the same fraud can be possible with this module. It loads a few more seconds, but it has a lot of nice data for today. I can find out April or Alicia, and extract all roles, duties, and privileges which the person has applied to herself. And then I can find out who else has the same access rights. On latest Microsoft session, somebody from FastTrack told us that Alicia is responsible for most of the bugs and errors in Contosa database. I don't know if that's true, Timo. We can see here that Alicia has multiple roles applied. Purchasing agent is available here, and we see two other accounts with that role. We also hear budget clerk and Brad and Molly potentially. If the Alicia did something wrong, we can outline who else has the same role. The same thing on duty and the same thing on the privilege level. If you're going to build up naturally multiple SOD roles, that will be an essence. Within the module, you have some history of changes to the within the module. When you are modifying, creating privileges, creating a role, this will be listed here. And there are some buffer 2 tables which are giving you understanding of how the security is built in the system. Moving along to the next element, we have user activity aging. That will be fulfilling the potential 30, 60, 90 rule. By 30, we say somebody is not logging into the system by last 30 days. We can do action A. Somebody is not logging in last 60 days. We can do action B, like deactivating or deleting account, and 90 days connecting to HR to validate if they are actually still working in the organization. That's kind of can be reflected and compared with the collection letters functionality, kind of the same idea of the brackets. On the top, you have the possibility to delete and also the enable or disable the user. And jumping towards, we have security versions. If you're going to pass the audit, let's say today we've passed the audit, everybody is happy with the final results of the roles that we've delivered. Business is happy, everything is happy. We make a version. So by today, we want to compare the changes. If you're gonna in January create another version, you'll be able to select compare, and by comparing, you are able to find out what else or what is missing or what was removed between the last version. I can focus only on changes, on their differences, and I can see that we actually removed Project Accounting Manager. So I can clearly know that there are some changes. If there are changes on the access level only, you're going to see a green changes on the specific line. So you are able to granularly find out what row was removed, what duty was removed, but also if there is some elevation or decrease in the license rights, you'll be able to spot it here. Moving along, we've got a role audit trail, and that is a new form which gives you the capacity to find out what roles are applied to the users. So if there are some changes and allocations, delocation of roles on any account, you will see this here. If somebody extended the account role to another entity, this will be also visible. So you can track potential changes in if fraud happened. If we have potential person, we might see here that there was a last minute elevation of the access rights, and that might be with a specific timestamp here. Right now we are jumping in a bit to more advanced functionalities. The one will be temporary role management, and this function is designed to help keep track on the organization changes in the event of sick leave, long holidays, some unusual changes in the responsibilities. If Alicia needs to take care of somebody else's responsibilities, we can merge or swap the roles which are applied. So we have a backlog or kind of a reason why the person A has much more roles on the time being. I'm able to define a start date and end date of particular temporary role change, and then I'm able to define what are the temporary roles, what new specific responsibilities Alicia will handle, and what are the original roles. So either there's going to be merged or swapped to temporary roles. And then I'm able to find out how often this person was logging into the system. And in case of potential fraud, we'll be able to refer to that form stating that there was a purpose that the person A, in that case Alicia, had the elevated access rights for that. With that being said, we're going to jump into the another element of the system, so-called roles violated segregation of duties rules. And that will help you maintain roles which are not violating SOD rules by themselves, which means that if they're out of the box or if they are created, designed by you roles of multiple duties, and that combination of duties itself is making in compliance because of in that case, accounts payable clerk has two rules in violation. We see those two rules which are actually violating the SOD, and we need to fix it up. So that is actually connecting straight to the SOD rules from the standard. So if you have by now created some rules defined in SOD rules, I refer here to this module, which is available for a long time, you'll be able to benefit even more with that new USG module. This will simply mean that those rules set here, they will be accounted in the rules violating segregation of duties rules, and as well as the roles designer, the security process roles maintained. In here, those SOD roles will be also heavily utilized. And finally, we are moving towards the privileged user management, aka firefighter in SAP. The whole intention is to make sure that we are able to overview what users with hyperpowers in the system, we can say system admins, external system admins are joining into the production environment for a short period of time for some hypercare activities, for some fixing. We want to make sure that they are not doing any fraudulent actions within helping us. So simply saying, we have the recommendation would be to have at least one privileged user account in system administration. They are deactivated for time being, and when we want to have that account ready, we are just adding who will be our privileged user. We are defining the start date and end date. The period cannot exceed 8 hours, and then there's a bot job which just turns on the start date that functionality, and then when the user logs in, we are logging all logs in and logs out. We are also turning on invisibly, in the background, task recording, which is measuring, keeping eye on all actions of the user. So after Alicia will be our firefighter, will perform multiple activities, we'll be able to download task recording file, which will outline all steps performed by Alicia within the fixing activities. So that will be a baseline to defend what they were performing, either by learning how to fix the next time the same issue, or to defend if within creating or changing number sequences, they haven't went to vendor bank accounts and changed their bank accounts into theirs and make a wire transfer. So to prevent that activities, we want to make sure that we are able to find out what they were doing within that fixing period. Aside of those all number of functionalities, naturally we have some parameters, and they are pretty simple regarding the pricing. Whenever you are able to count or define prices for different license types, and as well as the user aging periods for the user activity brackets. And I think I'm right on time, and I hope you like what we've been designing, and that is a huge pleasure to do that jointly with Microsoft.
Thank you, Bart, for the great demo. So next is that we are covering a couple of resources. Saurabh, do you want to walk us through?
So these are some amazing resources which we have put together. Definitely feel free, these will be shared with all of you after this session. I would like to emphasize mainly on 4 links or resources here. The first one is the MS Learn, which is the Microsoft Learn website public documentation which we have created around security governance features. We have tried to cover all the basic functionalities and scenarios about every feature, but we are of course looking for feedback. If you find something missing or something which can be improved in that documentation, please feel free to share that feedback, and we will work on the improvement of this documentation. We have also put together a quick FAQ document for the USG, which is Security Governance FAQ. We have tried to learn some of the basic questions which most of the end users have, and then we have tried to answer them there. I hope it will cover some of your questions as well. Then comes the Viva Engage group. I highly recommend joining this group for everybody to learn about what all communications, Q&As, discussions are happening around the USG feature. People are actively using this group to post their questions and just sharing their ideas, and if some scenarios are not working for them over this group. And we are actively monitoring this group every day to reach out to every individual and then work with that person to make sure that if there is a bug or if there is a feedback or if there's an idea which we can log into the system, improve on top of it. So definitely recommend to join this group. And lastly, the idea portal, which I'm pretty sure most of you are already aware. The special call out here is that, of course, we have tried our best to cover most of the business challenges into the USG features and provide them as a improvement. But if you find any other ideas which you would like us to think about in future as a product backlog, and we can provide further improvement, go ahead and log these ideas in the idea portal and upvote them so that we can bring them back in our backlog and our product backlog. So with that, I will hand it over back to Timo, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, Saurabh. And that is bringing us right into Q&A. I see there are a lot of questions filed already. And Saurabh, I think you answered already some. Do you want to highlight the one or the other question and the answers to it?
So I know I saw one of the question which I found very interesting, and I thought of bringing it right here. So the question is around the privileged user session and how the recordings of the privileged user session are managed, controlled, and archived. So I would like to call out that privileged user management sessions are maximum 24 hours of duration. So that is one way by which we are trying to control the size of the recording file, as well as not being overutilized this privileged user session as well, because it is basically giving access to elevated account in the system. So we want to keep it controlled as well. And those recordings, the session recordings, will be available to the system administrators, and they have the power to either leave it in the database, or they can archive it from the system into some other storage area, and they can clean up the database, because at the end of the day, these recordings are stored in the database table as a binary stream. So you can basically archive it somewhere else and then clean up the table. But it is totally up to the policy which the company and that company is following.
Yeah, I'll just respond one, which is pretty pretty interesting. Situation where you have one row, let's take that sales representative once again on the workbench. When we have sales representative working in like whole Europe, when we're going to have 5 different countries, but what we can distinguish is a core of responsibilities of the selected individual, or like core of a sales representative job. And that will create one row. And then for different regions, there might be additional row, which will consist only those which are local. Like in some countries, you might have standard audit file. In some countries, you're going to have invoicing, or some elements which are pretty big. You have that duty that people need to have access to it, but this might elevate your licensing. So the approach would be to make this more atomic, make it more focus on regions then, and as a result, indeed, you maintain the one security role for sales representative. And on the top of that, you are giving only to those from a specific region extra one, which is dedicated to regional functionalities. By that way, it is easier for maintaining, it is easier for clarity and license optimization. I think we have space to answer maybe a few more questions, and I guess it will be great to extend our FAQ with more questions which are here, because there are great questions. Thank you so much, guys, for giving that, because this will either extend the roadmap for the further releases, but also build a great database for everybody to make this finance and supply chain management bulletproof from the security perspective.
Perfect. And while I'm trying to answer all the Q&A questions within this session, I will make sure that if I'm not able to answer right now, I will take these questions and put it in the FAQ document, which we shared earlier. So you will be able to find all these questions with their answers in the FAQ document, which is publicly available after the session.
There are a couple of questions regarding the release. So that, just to repeat, it's again on 10.0.43 in public preview. And I do see a question around the privileged user access, and if it can track all activities done by this user, regardless if the table is audited or not. And that's coming with a task recorder part, right?
Yep. So if I may chime in, the privileged user management session will be using the existing task recorder utility to record the session. It means it will record every user interaction on the UI elements. We have already identified the scenario where we have to implement in future any activities which is happening in the background, like batch jobs or any data utility activities or DMF imports. So those things which are happening in background, they do not require user interaction. We are trying to record such activities as well as part of the privileged user session. It is not available in the current release, but it will be part of our next release, hopefully.
And maybe to extend that, the task recording is impossible to stop it when you are running under the privileged session. It is designed the way that it is kind of in background. So the person who is a firefighter, who is the privileged managed user, they are not able to see that they are actually kind of a quote registered or listened. So that activity is pretty nicely secured. And I also see one question which has a lot of votes on it. With the USG, if there is a way to test security roles without assigning them to a user and logging. So from the practice and multiple projects we've been through, we see that the only way to do that, the only way how to you lead with the project is to have the dummy accounts, and either you're going to use test automation to run the same processes that you've built on your role and just redo test automation on the top of that, or you will just have somebody to test the role for them. But at the end of the day, the user acceptance testing phase of the implementation, you need to have somebody to sign off the role. So somebody needs to test it. I hope that answers your exact question.
I found one interesting question, and it can be like a future roadmap idea as well. So there is a question around when the temporary role is being assigned, or maybe the privileged user is assigned to a person, will it generate some automated reminders about that allocation? So the current answer is no. There are no automated emails or notifications going out to the person when a temporary role is being assigned to it. Basically, maybe right now the process is that first the person and the system administrator will mutually discuss and agree before the temporary roles are assigned to the person, and there is no need for a notification. But it can be a helpful feature or enhancement in future where there are some automated emails or notifications going in about the temporary roles are being allocated, or the temporary role session is about to end. So those kind of notifications. So thanks for the call out here.
And I think we have one more pretty repetitive question regarding the functionalities. And I think it is safe to say that we've presented on the beginning a slide where the issue statement or customer challenges were outlined. And there was a kind of this was identified, this whole USG module was identified, or functionalities within the module were identified as missing and critical. And customer challenges was that they need a lot of ISVs to start implementation. And with USG implementation, we are just filling the gap, we can say. And I think that answers a few questions on the chat, which are out there.
Right. Yeah, and there are many more questions that, as Saurabh said, that we are going to follow up offline, and repetitive ones that are interesting for the broader community. We are then introducing and including in the FAQ document that we have already published on the MS Learn. And we are right on time. So thanks everyone for attending the call, the candid questions and feedback as well, which was provided. And leave it up to Saurabh and Bart to also say thank you. And then we stop the event for now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Cheers.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Timo, for hosting. Thank you. Bye.